I'm really excited for this one. Taylin, someone who I wish I had gotten to know better and spent more time with, but I really appreciate that he's made some time to chat with me today. And so just to get started and for everyone, I guess, to learn a bit more about Taylin, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your journey? Like, why should anyone listen to you on this podcast?
I'm not sure that anybody should listen to me, but I'll do my best. Yeah, so the long story short of it is I was a broke musician in my early 20s, who I just have always been someone who's been interested in art and creativity at the core. I really love art and artists. Christopher Nolan is one of my heroes. Flume, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen, for anyone who's into anime. Like, I just love creative art and stuff. And I've always wanted to make, earn a living just creating things, which is very hard. And I started as a musician, and I did get a record deal in my early 20s, and it was a really fun time of my life, but I was very broke. Times where I had to eat like lemons for dinner, kind of broke. So I eventually went to being a college teacher. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a teacher. I even buried that in a time capsule in preschool. Said when I'm 20, I will drive my car, work on my computer, and be a teacher or something like that. And I was like, oh,
Heck yeah.
I guess that's exactly what I'm doing in my 20s, driving my car. But so I became a teacher, and it was really cool. Taught me a lot of skills. I genuinely love teaching. I love sharing valuable information and helping people with skill acquisition. But I didn't make very much money as a teacher, and it got kind of monotonous, and I was teaching the same things. I wasn't challenged as much anymore, and I wanted more freedom, say freedom without borders. I didn't do a whole lot of travel, wanted to do that. I wanted to make 6 figures a year for the first time, thought it would take me 10 years to do that while working remotely and didn't even know if it was possible. But through total fluke of just meeting people who introduced me to Twitter, I started writing on Twitter. 6 months of kind of figuring that out, trying writing for the first time, seeing how online business works. I landed my first ghostwriting client. It was about like 50 cents per follower to do Twitter ghostwriting back in the day. And it ended up being like $3,000 a month or something that I was making from that client. And I was like, oh my God, this works. And it broke my brain that you can make money online. You can do your own thing. I'm like creating content and creating things, and this is really cool. And then I eventually quit my job to just be a full-time ghostwriter. And that eventually led to me expanding from Twitter to LinkedIn to Substack, doing newsletters, releasing multiple digital products around writing, helping coaches make like $50K per month with content. And now I would say I've expanded just into like marketing, sales, and helping businesses and other people make money, whether that be through art and creative means or helping coaches and consultants make more money with offers and social content. That's like my wheelhouse. So that's the really quick and dirty picture.
I love that. I love that. I can definitely attest that Talon is a fantastic teacher and has an insane amount of knowledge. He shared a lot of things just online. I think I followed you maybe more than a year ago, like you and Dakota, and I'm like, man, these guys are the goats. Like, I want to be just like Talon when I grow up, like that kind of thing. So having you on here is even surreal. I'm so grateful that you made some time to be on here. So I want to dive into some of the things that you just mentioned. You mentioned that you've always felt this attraction to creating art. I think there are a lot of people out there that resonate with that want to create something that is beautiful, meaningful art, right? How have you been able to grapple with creating something like that, something beautiful and meaningful art, but also focusing on like the distribution and making sure that people actually see what you create rather than just creating art for art's sake?
It's very hard. There's a tension for sure. Keep in mind, I'm more of an artist than a business person, but I've learned business more for the utility of it. Because I would say art to me is when you're creating something for its own sake. It's something that you really want to see in the world. Like, I need to see this created, whether that be a picture, a graphic, a product, could be like a movie or a short animation, a book, a painting. If you're like, there's something in me that wants to create this, like it's almost like something is moving through you. To me, that is the creation of art. It's done for its own sake. Where business is more, at least the truest spirit of business would be helping people solve problems. So to me, the intersection of art and like monetizing art is, how do I create something that I feel so called to create, but how do I also align it with solving a problem or a need within the market. And that's the tension that so many creators go through. Like as a musician, I didn't think about what does the market want? I was like, what do I want to create? And I wasn't good enough to make the market interested in the things I wanted to create. My music wasn't good enough. So no one like listened to it. I wasn't able to be successful there. And then I thought about even writing a book, but I was like, oh, well, I'll never be able to distribute my book. And back when I did actually attempt to write a book around the COVID time, but I realized like, no one's going to buy it. I don't know how to market it. And that book wouldn't have even solved a market need. It would have just been done for the sake of creating a book. So nowadays, I really do think more about where are there needs in the market that I also feel called to create something authentic to me that can solve that need and that people will exchange money for it. And that's been fun. Some artists don't like that and they reject that. They're like, no, like I just want to do things for my own sake. It's like, that's fine. Just don't expect to make money off of it. You can create in your own time and just create things for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you do want to make money from your art and you want to make a living from it, it has to be aligned with some kind of market need. It has to solve some kind of problem. And I've become very fascinated with that intersection and thinking about that. And then how do you learn marketing to make people more aware of it? And that's like the last piece, and why I got into writing and ghostwriting was essentially, how do I get paid to learn to market so that I can eventually have the skills to market my own art? And now we're at work.
Like that. I think it's an interesting dynamic and tension because when I speak with other people that feel called to create something, it can feel like I am forcing my creativity to fit what other people expect or what they're looking for. Where people, if they're writing or doing ghostwriting, for example, they might feel called to write something, but that doesn't fit with like the best practices or the things that the algorithm is looking for. And there's that tension there of like, well, I have to conform my creativity to play the game, I suppose. How do you kind of navigate that tension when creating online of, yeah, I need that stuff to be seen, but that also again compromises some of that expression that I have.
So trendsetters learn from human nature. Everyone else learns from trendsetters, and that's why they have to copy them, because they're not learning directly from human nature. So that would be my take on that. Is in the beginning, like, you're just not good enough. So when I was new to marketing and writing, I had to copy what other people were doing because I was just like, oh, I'm just writing by my intuition. This is just what I want to create, but I don't have the intuition and the taste yet to create something that is going to both work and fill my soul. Like, that is a skill, and that is essentially taste. Once you understand how marketing and, we'll say, like, attention psychology and storytelling and all of this works on a fundamental level, when you have like tens upon thousands of inputs, you're able to just feel when something is going to work. And that is when you can monetize your interest more easily. Until that point, if you just write from your intuition, you're like, oh, it flopped. Like, no one liked it. Like, I don't understand why. But the thing that's paradoxical about this is you don't refine your intuition to the point of being able to write from taste unless you follow it. Because people say, trust your gut is always right. No, your gut is the best guess that you have right now with all the knowledge and inputs and skills that you have. So it's the most right thing that you know, but it's not necessarily right. So I will write posts sometimes that I'm so positive are going to crush, and they'll still flop. And I'm like, man, I really thought that was going to work. And then I have to look at that and say, why didn't this work? And then I learn something new, and my intuition levels up a little bit. So it levels up from that feedback until you're actually so good that you can just write from taste. And that's when it becomes easier to do your own thing. Like, for example, I used to always reference content when I wrote. I'm like, oh, what's my perspective on this? How would I have a thought on this topic? And that's a great path for beginners. Over the past 2 weeks, I actually stopped referencing content and I just write just what's on my mind. But I sit with it. Like, I mull over it. I say, okay, like, this is the idea I have. Actually, I don't think people are going to resonate with that idea. That one's more for me. So I'm going to write it, and then I'm not going to post it. And then I'll have another one where I'm like writing it and I'm like, oh, this is like, I know this idea will work. Like, this is something people will like, but it's not said right yet. And I'm like, something about the first sentence isn't right. It's not hitting the right pain point. I couldn't logically tell you why it doesn't work. Like, I probably could, but it's just not my process anymore. I just look at it and I'm like, it's either right or it's not. And I just kind of tweak things until I'm like, ooh, that feels right. And when I write like that, my content actually does a lot better. but it didn't used to do better when I wrote like that. It actually used to do worse. So it just takes time of practicing and refining your skills until you have enough intuition and taste to essentially set your own trends, like right from your interests, write the things that interest you, and you make people interested in them because you're just that good. That's when you get to like a Dan Coe level, for example, is like, or a Naval, is they just know they have so many inputs, like they're just so good. You're like, oh, I love that. And even though no one else has ever said that before, it just takes time to get there.
Like that. I have some thoughts on this topic and I want to hear what you think about them, right? When I think of what a skill is, to me, it's kind of like a habitualized action in the sense of you've done it so many times that you've like internalized that thing. You don't have to think about it anymore. If you think about like a pro soccer player or football for Americans, like they don't think about how they're going to hit the ball or what they need to do in a particular moment. It's just pure like instinct in that moment and skill that they've developed over tens of thousands of repetitions on the training ground, right? So this idea of skill then I think applies to that process that you were kind of outlining, where to me it looks like when you start with something, learning a skill, applying something in business or whatever, your potential is quite large because there are so many things that you can do, but you don't know how to apply it properly because you don't have the skills yet. As you apply it and you learn more of those skills, your like potential for expression narrows because you're learning all of these, like how to write a hook, what are the best practices around this thing, how is it done correctly, all of that kind of thing. Sticking with the writing metaphor, right? Or the writing example. So your potential narrows until you understand it so much that it becomes internalized and you don't have to think about these best practices or whatever so much. And then your potential widens again because now you've gone through this like skill compression and learning this skill and you come out the other end in a way that you can actually express yourself more because you've learned everything in the middle. And for me, this kind of describes when people say something is a skill issue, that's what I think about is you just haven't gone through that compression yet of developing the skill enough for you to be able to express yourself in that particular way. I don't know what you think about that general idea, but I'd love to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, I'd say I think you're correct, but your explanation was a little off. Your skill is correct habitual action, not habitual action.
Mm,
That's the only
mm,
update I would give to it is you're 100% correct that it's unconscious processing. Like if you're playing the piano and you're skilled at playing piano, you don't think, you don't use logic, you don't use conscious effort, you just play. Like if anything, you just use conscious effort to direct yourself to play the piano and then your unconscious just takes over and you just have correct habitual action. When you have a skill issue, you might have habitual action, but it's actually not the correct action to get the outcome you want. So
mm.
you sit down to play and you're habitually playing the piano, but your fingers are hitting the wrong keys or they're pressing them a little too hard. You're not consciously doing it, but it's happening. And that's why I think of learning a skill as getting better at micro decision making. So I think about it as knowledge would be information that can influence action. And when you can take micro decisions and enough micro actions that are correct in a row, you know how to implement knowledge and then you develop skill. So we'll keep going with the piano analogy. First, I need to know how to read music. That's knowledge. But just because I know how to read music doesn't mean I have the skill of playing music. So that would be, in my opinion, the example of being overeducated and underpracticed. I can't play it, but I know what it says. I know what it reads. And then when you start practicing playing it, it's all decision making. The decision of how do I play that key? And I don't want to give an analysis paralysis, but there's a lot of micro decisions that go into any action. How hard do you hit that key? What part of your finger do you use to hit that key? What finger do you use to hit that key? And all of those little micro things have to be done correctly. And then you go to the next key. And when enough of these micro decisions are correct in a row, you eventually develop skill or a degree of skill. And the people who have the highest degree of skill are the ones who have refined everything down to like the smallest micro decisions and have like as many of them correct as like possible. That would mean like the maximum amount of skill.
I like that a lot. I think that adds a lot more depth and nuance to kind of what I was talking about. Okay. I want to change track a little bit from what we've been talking about with skill. And I want to just ask you, I know that writing is something that you've now been doing for a while. I'm curious, what is it about writing that excites you or like pulls you in? Or what does it mean to you?
Writing isn't actually that exciting to me in a sense. I'm the writer who isn't in love with writing, funny enough. But I can't say that completely. There's elements of writing that I do love. The way that it orders thinking is incredible. I don't think you can be a good thinker unless you are at least a decent writer. Like anyone who doesn't write, like, I don't even know if you have any authority to speak about thought or ideas. Unless you're writing, your mind is probably an entropic mess. So I do
Yep,
love
I agree.
writing for that. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I respect it as an MVP. As someone who loves art, to me, writing is a minimum viable product. So if you wanted to create a film, the first thing you have to do is write a script. And you need concepts and ideas. If you wanted to do a newsletter, you would start with like outlining it. If you want to shoot a YouTube video, you would start by like writing a script, like here's the things I'm going to say, and then you would think of the visual component and how those words translate to visual. But what I'm actually in love with is I'm in love with visual mediums. Ever since I was a kid, I actually credit Pokemon for this, of all things, because the first moment of wonder I remember in my life was watching the Pokemon opening scene from like the first season ever of Pokemon.
I
And
get
just like
that.
like the visual medium and the music and how it all combined, like it's just so cool. And I got into writing mainly because it was low effort. I was like, okay, I can write online and make money. I don't have to worry about audio equipment. I don't have to know how to edit video. I don't have to like produce music anymore, even though I do know how to do that. And writing is just like the minimum viable skill for the internet, which is why I love it. But for me, like I'm someone who needs an element of visual stimulation. I have to be able to picture an idea in my head or I'm not inspired to write about it. It's like a bug in a feature for me. So when I actually write, now that I'm doing YouTube, I realize that I love creating YouTube videos. It's my favorite creative thing that I do. I love taking written or like just creating really incredible visual mediums. But if I didn't know how to write, I wouldn't be able to do it as well. Because writing is the MVP of the YouTube video. It's what's the script? How tight can we make that script? And then how do we take those words and translate it to visual mediums? So I love writing for the MVP of the internet that it is. I love that it's a beginner friendly skill that anyone can get into. They can earn a full-time living just being a writer and their thinking will be really good. It can also help you with mental health. It can help you self-author your identity. Writing is a very incredible skill. But if we're talking about a skill I'm like truly in love with, it's more creating visual art.
I like that. And honestly, that's news to me. That's news to me. I always know that you're, an incredible writer. As I said, I've been following your stuff for a while. So I know that you started your YouTube recently. I will have to like plug it on this episode so that people can check it
Thank
out
you.
as well. But I like that. I like that. So you mentioned that writing online is like the MVP or just writing in general, right? So my question is, why do you think more people don't take advantage of learning to write online? That's part one of the question. And part two is, why don't more people see success with doing that? Because not everyone is popping off like you or like Dakota or, a lot of those other big names that we see out there. So what's stopping people from getting into it, and why aren't more people seeing that success?
Well, I think most people don't get into it because culturally, writing isn't seen as a high value skill anymore. At least it's not taught that way. When I was younger, I thought, okay, making money as a writer is very hard. You have to become like an author. You have to write fiction. I didn't like English class. I didn't like the way writing was taught. I was never taught that writing clarifies thinking, like not directly in school. Maybe they do now, but they didn't back then. And I think because of that, people just don't value writing. It's a skill you don't really want to learn as a kid. Most people don't enjoy learning to write, and it is hard work, like clarifying thought, mulling over things, grammar. It's not the most fun skill to learn. It's not until I got introduced to the online space, I'm like, oh, writing can be used to like attract a tribe of like-minded people if we're writing about the same topics and the same interests. Writing can be used to create a digital resume that potential employers or people go to your page and they want to buy stuff from you or they want to hire you. Writing it's like the whole internet runs on writing. Like you need to know how to write code if you want to create software. You need to know how to write to do media, which is any type of thing on the internet. You either got to write scripts for YouTube videos, write written content. If you want to write ads, if you want to write sales pages, like it's all writing. So the internet essentially runs on writing. And when you realize the power of the internet and how it can change your life, because you have so many people you can offer things to, you're like, well, what is the basic skill that you need to learn to capitalize on anything on the internet? Oh, it's writing. And then writing becomes valuable. But we're not taught that in school. We're taught a different belief about writing and its value and what it's for, which is writing essays that you don't want to write in the first place.
Yeah, that's been one of my personal struggles with writing, is that I've always loved writing. Actually, I resonated a lot with the example that you gave of you can't make it as a writer unless you become an author. That's what I was told by my parents. Like, you can't become a writer unless you're like J.K. Rowling, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, 8-year-old me took that to heart a little too much, which is unfortunate. But the ability that like what you can create with writing is insane. But for me, having to unlearn a lot of the academic writing and realize that that kind of writing, a lot of what we're taught in school, turns a lot of people off from writing and actually doesn't help them communicate better either. When I look back at things that I used to write like 5 years ago, I'm like, what the heck am I even saying? Being able to refine your thought. And that the internet is great for that because everyone has a short attention span. You have to be able to communicate in as concise and effective a way as possible, which is a great forcing function, I suppose, in that sense. So let me think. You mentioned before that you kind of went from being that musician, eating lemons for dinner kind of thing to where you are now, where I'm assuming that you don't eat lemons for dinner most of the time. Maybe it's
Limes
more like
nowadays.
limes. it's more steak and caviar and limes. So my question is, what helped you to kind of break through your own conceptions around money? Because I think that sometimes people see the crazy things that people can do online, like, oh my gosh, they're making, kind of like you mentioned, like 40K in a month from ghostwriting and that kind of thing. And that just sounds, it's like paradise, impossible. No way I can do that. And I think that a lot of people feel trapped a bit by their internal conceptions of money and how much they can make. So what helped you to kind of break free of those internal obstacles and be like, yeah, I'm someone that can charge $3,000 for what I'm doing, that kind of thing?
Faith precedes proof in this regard. So I never thought I was going to be someone who made a lot of money or could make a lot of money. Maybe deep down I did, but I didn't know how to do it. And when I was a college teacher, I made about $40,000 a year post-tax. Like, it's not very much money. And I wanted to make six figures. That's just the first number, to have like a decent living. Like, I actually wouldn't starve if I could make six figures and I could do things. But I had no
Totally.
idea how to do it. I thought it would take me 10 years. So I almost went back to university to become a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But it was going to take way too long and involve more debt. And I just realized it would take forever to pay the debts off. And I would waste a lot of years of my life in school that I'd pretty much waste my whole 30s in school, which I didn't want to do. And that was when I got into the online space. And for me, I remember saying to my mentor, I said, I just want to make 3,000 a month writing online. And he laughed at me. He actually laughed. He's like, it's like one client. And I didn't know, like, you hear that, but it's not true for me yet. So it just sounds like a pipe dream. And then you go on the timeline and other people are, oh, I made 10 grand this month and I'm 16. And you're like, is this real? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And at some point maybe this is a Tony Robbins thing. I don't know where I got it from, but I'm like, okay, if it's true for somebody else, then that is proof that it could be true for me. Because if somebody else did it, then I should be able to do it too, within like reason of most things. So I had faith. I was like, I'm just going to believe if Dakota's doing it and the 16-year-old's doing it and JK Molina's doing it and Dan Coe's doing it, I can make money doing this. They are proof. There's like more than one person, so this can be done if I learn how to do it. So then I started asking, how do I do it? How did they do it? And I just listened to what they said. I didn't question it. I was just like, hey, if this is how I can make money, like, I'm just going to follow your guys' systems that you say in your content and in your courses. And then when I landed my first client and he paid me that like $3,000, that was all it took to be like, oh, this works. And it was like my whole brain shifted like, this is possible. And then I wasn't held back by my own belief anymore because I wasn't going on faith. It's hard to go off of faith when it's not working. But it's the only option you have when it hasn't worked for you yet. But once I had actually made money, I watched the money get deposited into my account where I made more money from one client than I did from working 40 hours as a college teacher. It completely broke my beliefs about money and what it is like to make money. And then I just doubled down. And that's how I got to then 10K, then 20, then 40, and eventually 70 per month. And that's when I was like, okay, this is a little crazy, but you have to have faith until you have proof. And then once you have proof, then you don't need faith anymore.
I like that a lot. I think that's, how do you develop that faith? How did you develop that faith? Because I think that, again, I completely agree that faith has to precede the proof. If you had the proof, you don't need to have faith and you can just do it. And that's easy. But you normally don't just get proof. It's not how it works. So what kind of gave you the delusion, the faith, The ability to believe in the fact that you could make that happen, even though up until that 3K was deposited in your bank account, you had no proof that you.
Well, again, it's like, okay, you could take a David Deutsch example, who's like a scientist or a physicist, I think. And he's like, anything, unless it is bound by the laws of physics, it is possible given the right knowledge. And I love that frame because it just completely shatters all beliefs of what's possible. So this isn't what I said to myself back then, but this is what I would say now is, does it defy the laws of physics for you to make 10,000 as a ghostwriter? No, like, no, of course, like you can do that within physics. Okay, so it is possible. So now let's see, have other people done it to prove that they've already done it? So that would mean there's a proven path. It would mean that that problem has been solved by someone. It's like, okay, well, Dakota Robertson did it, J.K. Molina did it, Dan Coe did it. Oh, there's multiple people who have done this, which means that there has to be a process that can be followed for multiple people of different personalities to achieve this result. So it's even more possible. It's not only possible, it's predictably possible with the right process. So I will just follow what they say until it works. And that was all it was for me was, you know, if they're proof that it's possible, then I'm going to follow it. And if I trace this all the way back, where I think I got this from was a Tony Robbins book, or it was from Tony Robbins, I think, where in my early 20s, I was quite miserable. You know, I wasn't happy. I was overweight. I didn't have a girlfriend. I wasn't making good money. I was living with like 5 roommates. I had a piece of plywood in between, like halfway through a room, and me and another roommate were splitting a room because we couldn't afford to pay any more money. And I just remember being like so miserable, and I'm like life just sucks. But then I was watching Tony Robbins, and he was just so happy. And I'm like, oh, well, I could have all these, I could blame him. I could blame my own circumstances and say, well, he's happy because he has all this money, and he's happy because he has this and this. But what if I looked at it deeper and I said, him being happy is proof that people can be happy and that people can enjoy their life. And I looked to other people. I said, well, some of my other friends enjoy their life and they're happy. And some of my other friends enjoy their life and they're happy. And this was the first time in my early 20s that I questioned my own way of living and my own beliefs. And I said, okay, then what am I believing? What am I doing that is making me unhappy? What are they doing that I'm not doing? What are they believing that I'm not believing? And my life is so miserable. I'm just going to change my beliefs and I'm just going to give theirs a try. I'm going to try their beliefs and their way of life on and see if it fits me better. And this was a very hard, gradual process. Like I would always regress into my old ways of thinking and my old ways of acting. But slowly, like one little micro decision, one little micro belief at a time, I shifted them until enough of them were correct that I started to enjoy my life. And then I was like, oh, thank God I got out of that. And I actually just looked to other people that it was possible to enjoy my life. And the same would be true for money.
I love that. And I feel that for myself, I resonate a lot with that, what you shared. Similar sort of story in my, I was very miserable, unhealthy, just not in a good situation until I began reading more positive stuff, more like self-helpy type things. And being like, okay, well, I'd rather the pain of making a change than the pain of staying the way that I am. And even if I can't see the way that this is going to work for me, I'd rather try than just be stuck here. And over time, that change happens. For me, I kind of see it as like, you have to, in some sense, kind of brainwash yourself, like rewire your thinking in a way that breaks those old beliefs and things about the world. And that happens over time, and it's slow, but it's profound. Because I don't know how you feel about this, but personally, I believe that the way that you look at and perceive the world is exactly what you will see. Like what you look for is what you find, essentially, in the world. And that rewiring process is so crucial because even in your 20s, when you're miserable, there probably were tons of opportunities for you to find happiness, to experience things, to make money, whatever it was that 20-year-old Taylin wanted. But that mental architecture wasn't there yet to see that and to witness it until you started to rewire your thinking, where now I'm sure that there are still maybe habits of thinking that you're overcoming, but you see a lot more of the world in a more positive light. Would you say that's kind of a fair way of looking at it for you?
Yeah, I would largely agree with you on that. A lot of the things that we believe, especially when we're younger, you could argue everything we believe comes from somebody else or life. Like your parents or somebody that you know told you the world is a certain way and that you should believe a certain thing. Or you had an experience that imprinted a certain belief on you, but none of these are chosen. So you could basically say most people's beliefs, up until they develop the cognitive capacity to question their own beliefs, aren't even theirs. So why do people defend them so much? Like, if you actually think about it, it's ridiculous. People are like, well, I believe this, or like, it's evil to make money, or you can't make 10K per month, or like, you're a scam artist if you do it, or I will never make this much money. It's like, if you were given a blank slate, you would never choose those beliefs. Like, if you could
Totally.
program your own mind and you were blank, you would never put those in your own head. So why the fuck are you defending them? Like, they're not yours. You know what I mean? Like, and it's so crazy. So it's just slowly, like you said, like rewriting those one at a time. And a lot, like one really good way to do that is through journaling. That's another like great use of writing. I'm really big on journaling. I have a whole kind of like archive of different journal prompts for different purposes. One is called a belief excavation prompt. And it's when I'm like, where did this belief come from? And it just prompts me and guides me to explore where is the origin of this belief and what's the proof and evidence for it. And is it even useful for me to believe? And sometimes I look at my own beliefs like, that's so ridiculous. Other times there's like limiting belief prompts. It's like, okay, what's the limits of this particular belief? And I'll like pull on that and say, how is this belief useful in my life? Where might it be holding me back? And I'm not attached to any of them. At least I try not to be. There's obviously deep held identity-based beliefs that even the not useful ones are hard to rewire. And I'm human, and that's really tough. But it's these people that are so attached to the beliefs they never chose. It's like you should be stoked to get in there and rewrite those. Like, don't you want to have your own, like have agency and can have control over your own path in life? Don't you want to design your own mind instead of being a puppet to circumstances and what was like passed down and assigned to you? This should be something that you are unbelievably stoked to do every day, no matter how hard it is. It's like literally psychological liberation. Should be one of the most, you should be like, wake up fucking stoked to journal and rewrite your own beliefs. But most people aren't.
What do you think holds people back? Why are they not excited about it? I will say that I think that the force of inertia is very strong. It is very strong. It is easier to stay at rest than to create motion and change. But I'm curious what you think.
Well, it's very challenging, right? It's very, very hard and it's painful. It's painful to question your own beliefs. Sometimes these beliefs are so fundamental and axiomatic that I've like almost thrown up while journaling because it's shifted my whole worldview like so upside down. It's very painful to do that. And it takes work. Like you have to really think, like the mind is going to resist any kind of change, especially if it's against your identity. And these really identity-based beliefs that are at the core that are probably the ones that need to be rewritten the most are the ones that don't want to be rewritten the most. You can almost think about it like if an organism's or a system's main job is survival, like think about these beliefs as their own organism or their own system that are trying to ensure their own survival. They're not trying to ensure your survival. They're trying to ensure that like they stay intact and they don't want you to rewrite them. Like they want to survive. They want to like replicate as a meme, like the belief as a memeplex. So they don't want you to get in there and rewrite them. They want the resistance, but it's when you finally get in there to the core and you rewrite them over and over again, like God, your life will change so radically fast. You do that for 12 months.
It's crazy. I think we underestimate how obviously meaningful, significant change takes time, but I think we also underestimate how fast that change really can happen when we commit to it. I've definitely been blown away by how fast change can happen. So continuing, or I guess expanding on this topic a little further, I'm curious, you've highlighted a number of different things. What do you feel like is the biggest thing that this Talon sitting at this desk right now knows that Talon in his 20s didn't know?
That's a deep question. Because there's like a lot of things, like I'm 31 now, so we're talking 10 years of experience. Maybe the biggest one, there was a lot of things that I didn't want to do that I wish I would have just done earlier. I think that would maybe be the one thing, is just waiting to do things or having an excuse or believing I had a reason not to do them. For example, in the early X days or Twitter days when I was growing, I was chatting with so many people in the DMs every day. I was commenting on everyone's stuff. Like I was actually active in the community and I was very scrappy, and it led to me making a lot of friends, opening a lot of doors, making a lot of money. And then as my business grew, I was like, I just don't want to do that anymore. It's not high leverage. It's not high leverage for me to build community and to chat with people. Like I just need to write content and drive people in. It's not high leverage for me to do cold email and acquire clients cold. It's not high leverage for me to, um, sit down and like emulate content every day. I just want to write like off the cuff. And in hindsight, like these are just a lot of the things that I now do because they're the biggest needle movers. Like they're not the highest leverage points, but like it's fun, not even necessarily to make money, but I actually like chatting with people on social media because I like knowing what's going on in the market. What are people doing? Like sometimes I stumble across someone and I'm chatting with them and they're building the coolest thing. And I learned something about a validated offer that I didn't even know you can make money with. Sometimes I stumble across content that's really niche and it's not really getting a lot of engagement, but it's like fundamentally like really cool and really artsy. Or I'm just chatting with someone about something and they tell me a problem that I didn't know exists. And I'm like, oh, I could create content on that. Or, oh, like, how would I solve that problem? And then sometimes they pay me and I become a consultant for them and I help them solve that problem. And I wish back then that I was just a little scrappier and that I was more willing to be scrappier for longer. Nowadays, everyone's like, I'm high leverage and like everything I do is high leverage. And I just work 4 hours a day. I'm like, I don't know. I just want to know what's going on. I want to be plugged in. I want to be chatting with people. I want to write great content. And I just want to do what I feel is the thing that is going to create the best results for me in my life, regardless of how much I want to do it in that moment. And I wish that like my younger self understood that. I think my younger self was so obsessed with freedom. He's like, I want to be that guy that works 4 hours a day. I just show up, I write my content and I check out because I'm like the cool guy who doesn't need to work all day. I don't need to chat with people. I just kind of like create and put it out and everyone thinks it's dope and I'm like out of here. That was like my dream for a long time. And nowadays I'm like, I don't know. I just want to genuinely help people. Like I just want to like get in there and understand like, hey, what are you struggling with? And like, can I help you with it? What problems exist out there? What are people thinking? What are people feeling? I want to be good at my craft. Like even if it's boring to get good, I want to sit down and be like, oh, I rewrote that post like 15 times. Where someone else is like, oh, it took me an hour to write a week's worth of content. Look at me. I'm just like, dude, fuck you. I sat down and rewrote this post 15 times because I wanted it to be as good as I could make it. It wasn't about having it take less time. Like I knew it could be better, so I rewrote it. It's just stuff like that. It's just like living in integrity and just doing what needs to get done to create really good work and help more people, regardless of how high leverage it is, regardless of like how it might make you look, regardless of how it might feel in the moment. It's just nothing to me feels better than truly helping people and truly creating like work you're proud of. And just anything that's involved in that.
That's so profound and very powerful, I think, because the way that you approach that and the answer to, what does that work look like is going to be different for each person, which I think is really cool. One of the things that I've become more and more convinced of is that you mentioned that business is helping people solve problems. That's what business is. And I think that that's a very good definition of business. I also think that a definition of business could be something along the lines of like caring at scale or something along those lines. It's not the most accurate version, but kind of piggybacking off of what you're talking about, I'm convinced that the people and the businesses that stand out the most and will probably see the most success in the long run are people and businesses that give a damn. Like that actually just care about what it is that they do, whether it's the quality of the things that they create, the quality of the effort that goes behind everything that they do, the intentionality behind the relationships that you build, all of these kinds of things. Like there's a reason why people gravitated to Apple under Steve Jobs, because he was thinking about like, what does the inside of the box look like? How does it feel when you open it? That level of care. And it's not even just attention to detail. It's actually just genuinely caring about what does this person who opens this box think? How do they feel when they do this? And when you can do that in your content and your interactions and your business and how you serve people, I feel like you're able to feel more fulfilled in what you do and break through plateaus as well, where people will just feel that difference rather than a lot of what I see, and I don't know how you observe this online, where it's a lot of like transactional type of stuff. Like I'm going to milk this for as much as I can rather than investing more long-term into your brand, your presence, your relationships, that kind of thing. So I like that a lot. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add on to that, but
Yeah, like there's so many pieces in there. Like conscious capitalism is possible. Let's maybe say that. I think Naval has this quote. It's like, ethical wealth creation is possible. And if you don't believe that it is, money will elude you. And I actually agree with that. Yes, there are big companies that make money on net negative things for people in society. because people are addicted and they want those things. Like Coca-Cola, which I'm addicted to Coke Zero. I love drinking Coke Zero.
Of Coke Zero.
I wish I didn't, but I do. So there are like net negative things, and people want those things, and that's why there's a market for them, unfortunately. But there's also such thing as conscious capitalism. And there are people who are genuinely creating things that I believe are net positive for the world. And you can be one of those people. Like, instead of critiquing all of money and all of capitalism and saying, well, there's so many evil corporations and people doing bad things, it's like, build an alternative. Build something that genuinely helps people and like learn how to get paid to do it. It's very hard, but it will be one of the most rewarding things that you do in your entire life. It's definitely possible. You have to actually try and fail forward and like want to succeed and want to help people. Like, the most selfish thing you could do for yourself is to learn to help other people, because it will improve your life the most. You will have the richest life in terms of the relationships you have, because you are valuable to those people. You will make more money than you know what to do with. So you'll have opportunities and a lifestyle that many people wish they had. You will feel confident and you'll feel like you have respect. You'll feel great about yourself because of the level of people you can help and how they look up to you as a leader. Like, if you really were long-term selfish, you would be short-term selfless.
Dang, it's one of those mic drop moments. I like that a lot. I think that that's a more long-term, holistic, and very powerful way of looking at or approaching business in general. And that's where I want to take the last little segment of our discussion, is kind of bringing it back again to business in a sort of tactical way. So my first thing is, I'm curious what you think about the idea of how you create or define your niche. Because I think there's a lot of advice out there on how you do this, from one end of the spectrum, your Dan Coes of you are the niche, all the way through to you should only be posting and sharing stuff about what your target audience cares about. And that's it. And maybe that's not the complete correct spectrum, but something along those lines. So tell me what you think. If you were a brand new entrepreneur and you're trying to build a business, how do you approach this idea of a niche?
Sure. I'll try to synthesize a bunch of different approaches and show that they're not really contradictory. They're just different paths. So I define a niche as a group of people, and an offer is a transformation that you provide to a group of people. And usually when people are saying to pick a niche, they're kind of meaning like you need a niche and an offer kind of together in some form. You need a transformation that you offer to a group of people. Now, some people will say, the most profitable niches are health, wealth, and happiness. I'm like, those aren't niches, those are topics. Wealth is not a group of people. So to me, that model is not useful. Yes, those topics allow you to make money and they are profitable topics. But to me, it's not useful in picking a niche. But niche is a group of people, and offer is a transformation you make to a group of people. So really we're like, what are we going to offer people? How are we going to transform their lives? And in my opinion, there's actually like 3 ways we can think about this. One is the beginner way, which is skills. If you are a specialist, your skill is your niche. You are helping people transform their lives by learning a skill. That is the transformation. So you can niche into, I help you become a ghostwriter that gets, makes $10,000 a month. That would be the skill of ghostwriting. And you only really talk about ghostwriting and acquiring that skill. Sales can be a skill. Even like reducing anxiety can be a skill. So there's a lot of mental health related ones. Learning to draw is a skill. Like getting fit is a skill. All of these things are skill-based niches. And if you're a specialist at that one thing, or you're a beginner who wants to just like niche into something that you're learning, I recommend a skill. But then you have, like Dan Coe saying, you are the niche. This would be my interpretation of this, is if you are a polymath, or if you have multiple interests, your way of life is your niche. That's my interpretation. Because, okay, let's look about this. Someone says, okay, just write about your interests, like you are the niche, write about whatever you want, whatever you feel like. Well, what transformation are you providing to people? People have to know that when they come to your profile. Like, what do I follow this person for? How do they transform my life? If you just write about yourself and whatever your interests are, the transformation is not clear. But you also don't want to write about just one skill, because you're like, I'm more multidimensional. This is someone like, this was a problem I had because I'm more of a polymath. Like, I do like ghostwriting. I love content marketing. I love writing, but I also love sales. I also love like editing videos. I love script writing. I love like mental health based things like solving anxiety and like beliefs and psychology based topics. I also love fiction. Like, I have so many interests. So when I just write about ghostwriting, it's very tough. And I think for a long time, people actually didn't know why they were following me. They like knew what I was doing, but I don't know if they really knew like what transformation I could provide to them. And it wasn't until more recently that I realized the unifying mechanism, the overall transformation of all of these interests, is a way of life. And that's why people follow Dan Coe. Dan Coe is a representation of an alternative way of life. It is, if you learn all of these skills, so it's now a skill stack. It's not one skill like it was in the beginning. Like you were going to learn to be a ghostwriter. Now it's, you need to learn writing, sales, product creation, offers, like audience capture, all of these things, because then you get this way of life. You get to live life on your terms. You get to have remote income. You get to have infinite income. You get respect. You get to feel good about yourself. You get to travel the world. That is a way of life. And that is the unifying mechanism of a polymath. And when people are polymaths, so they have multiple interests and they do not create a way of life as the unifying mechanism or a big overarching project that is being created that requires multiple skills, people don't know why they're following them and they never get any traction. So you are the niche is essentially like a way of life. It's how you live. And that's what they needs to be unified. People need to know what that is very clearly and what it is not. The third one, which I will say just super quick, is if you are like a visionary, your mission is your niche. So this is where instead of being like, I'm going to create a transformation in you. So in the first two examples, like Jarek, I'm like, okay, I'm going to transform you. You're going to learn this skill. You're going to adopt this way of life. When it comes to a mission, it's, I'm going to transform the world. And I alone cannot do it. So I need other people to help me transform the world. So now it's less of, I'm going to create this transformation in you. It's, come help me create a transformation in society. And that's like SpaceX or Tesla as a niche, right? It's like a very large scale transformation where you're trying to get as many people involved in that movement as possible, but you need other people's help to transform a larger thing that's bigger than individual people. And I think that those three models are the niches that I've identified. And I have not found a niche that exists outside of them, but I think there's a lot of confusion when people are trying to understand how to do these different niches. You hear someone say like, oh, like you need to talk about ghostwriting, your skills, your niche. And then Dan's like, you were the niche. And they're like, well, both these things can't be true. It's like, well, actually they are. It's just, you need to understand how to niche properly depending on which one you choose. There just has to be a unifying transformation.
That's going to require me to think about that a lot more. That's a very powerful way of looking at it. I think, speaking for myself and also other beginner creators that I've spoken to, figuring out what it is that you're actually trying to do and the type of people you're trying to help and how you help them seems to be one of the biggest obstacles to just getting started, where either you're not creating anything at all, or you're creating something that's completely random. And like you said, people have no idea why they follow you or how you even help them in the first place. And that's not, maybe it's a little better than the other one. I don't know, but I like that. I like that three models approach to niching.
Yeah, let's throw that piece in there. So in order to actually have a niche, you have to be able to create value for people. Like there has to be an element of value creation. The problem with niching in the beginning is you often don't have the skills to know how to create value for different people. And you have to explore to figure out where do people even like want transformations? Like what transformations do people want? You have to explore. Like my first 6 months I wrote online, I re-niched like 10 times. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'll try mindset, I'll try stoicism, I'll try dating, I'll try mindset again. And like, I just couldn't figure out what transformation it is. It's because you're just not skilled enough yet. And you don't know what problems are out there. And then once you find a problem that is validated and other people are making money with, then it's like, okay, now you need to become valuable enough to create that transformation in others. And this is the whole advice of just like share what you're learning along the way and help the people behind you is, yeah, like that's naturally just what you would do. Is here's the transformation I can offer you because I'm still becoming more skilled and more knowledgeable to create higher degrees of value creation. And you just continue to like learn to create more value all the way up. But you have to explore in the beginning to figure out what that thing is. And then you have to learn that thing. And then you have to make people aware that you actually can do that thing and change them. So it's a multi-stage process it does take time. And I think people need to have more compassion for themselves and not think they have to have it figured out like right away.
I think it's a well-known marketing principle that creating urgency and scarcity is a good thing, like to drive action, not in general, but to drive action. It's something that's leveraged a lot online, especially if you want something to appear valuable, kind of going with Hormozy's value equation, you want to make it as instant as possible. So it is, I think, in my view, one of the side effects of, I don't want to call it like guru culture or anything like that, but people trying to build businesses and sharing knowledge and experience, making things appear easier and more convenient than they really are. And so I love that advice of all of these, like a lot of these different approaches to making money, building your niche, building your business, whatever a lot of them can all work. But you need to recognize that there's a lot of work to get to that point where you've made it in some sense, and you need to have compassion for yourself along the way, because otherwise you're going to give up and it's going to be really tough and it's just going to suck. And that's not fun. That's not fun.
Yeah, exactly. I would just add one more
So
point to that, which is,
please, yeah,
and it's like, what else are you going to do with your life?
true.
Like whenever people are like, well, like it's going to take too long, like there's too many skills to learn, it's too hard. I'm like, sounds like the adventure of a lifetime. The fuck else are you going to do? Like, this is literally what I say to myself sometimes when I don't feel like working, is I'm like sitting on the couch. I'm like, like, I don't know if I feel like writing today. I just say, what the fuck else are you going to do? Like, you going to watch Netflix? Like, that's boring. Like, no, don't do that. You know, like go drink? Like, don't do that. It's like, okay, I could go work out, but that'll only take like 1 to 2 hours. I could go for a walk, but like, yeah, that'll take like an hour. Like at some point, it's just like, what else are you going to do? You learn to create value for people. Like it's the ultimate adventure. Like you want to, like you truly want to look at a hero from like a Lord of the Rings or whatever. And it's like, oh, I wish I could go on some epic adventure. Yeah, learn to become more valuable. Like seriously, that'd be the most fucking epic adventure of your lifetime. Doesn't even matter if it takes 10 years. Like what else are you going to do?
Nothing cooler than that. That's for sure. I like that a lot. So I'm curious, you've obviously been in the online business space for a while now with ghostwriting and everything else that you're doing. What's something that you understand about the online business game that most other people don't?
This is an interesting question because you got to be careful with this one, because it's like, how many other people actually do know this and they just don't talk about it?
Yeah,
It
true.
could be a lot. And where do I think I know something that I haven't actually tested my own knowledge and it would be wrong? But there's one thing that comes to mind is, so I think of social platforms, we're not talking about ads, but let's talk about social content as the arena. There's 2 types of social content platforms in my mind. One is algorithm based. This is like YouTube and TikTok. It's the algorithm and watch time decide how well a piece of content does. Essentially, that means that free markets decide, because people either watch it or they don't. They engage with it or they don't. There's another type of social platform that is actually more bureaucratic, and it's less to do with human nature, and it's more to do with prestige and social circles. That is actually like, X has changed a little bit. I think X has gone more algorithmic driven, but X is still largely like this. Instagram is also kind of like this. And same with LinkedIn, is whether LinkedIn wants to admit it or not, if you want something to like do well on these types of social platforms, it has to be shared or engaged with by people that have audiences, which essentially means that there is kind of like a monopoly of how well your content does based on who your network is. So you'll notice a lot of the people that do really well are the ones who take the courses from the big creators who will engage with their content. And then the second those big creators engage with that content does really well. But it has to be similar to what that big creator is already creating. Otherwise, they won't engage with it because their audience won't like it. And this was largely the reason why I decided to actually focus on YouTube as the main platform. Was I want to actually know if I'm good or not, because I want human nature to tell me. Like either I create a YouTube video that has high discovery and high watch time, or I don't. But I've seen a lot of content on LinkedIn that is very good that no big creators engaged with. So you might think it's not good content. So,
Right.
so those are 2 very different games. And I'm not saying that either of that is bad. Like that's just the nature of how things are. But if you want to be like just networking and it's like, okay, my content can be kind of mid, but as long as I'm networked with the right people and they're engaging with my stuff, like I will get more engagement because people trust those creators. Or do you want to be tested by human nature and free markets to be like, I either create really good stuff or I don't. And that would be like a YouTube algorithm. And that to me is the ultimate test. Like I want to know how good I can actually get. So I need to be able to crush it on YouTube. And if I can't crush it on YouTube, I'm just not good enough yet. And then I know what to work on. I've never heard anybody talk about that, but I think that the reason people don't talk about it is because they don't want to admit that that's how the game is played, because they're not incentivized to do so. They don't want to say that like they partially decide like what does well. Who would want to admit that? Right.
Yeah, I agree. I like that a lot. That's something that, from my perception at least, of kind of where things are going online, I think obviously there's always going to be a pull towards platforms, like LinkedIn or X or whatever. But I think the more and more I've seen longer form content with more evergreen discoverability, like YouTube, for example, along with games that you can play where the algorithm can actually expose your content to more people without the networking and all of that kind of thing, I think are going to win out in the long run. And the ROI of doing YouTube is huge. So I really like that approach. Not that obviously you can't see success with LinkedIn or whatever, but I think that's a cool challenge. I'm excited to see where you keep taking your YouTube at least. Last main question on topic of business is, what have you learned about attentional psychology? The psychology of maintaining, capturing, converting attention of people online.
Capturing and maintaining are two very different skills. Capturing is more about pattern interrupt and relevance. I think of it in terms of relevance and resonance, but some people struggle to understand what I mean by those terms. Relevance is just like when somebody reads the piece of content, is the thing they're talking about immediately relevant to the person they're trying to target? An easy one for that is AI. Like if you just say ChatGPT just released like a new update and it does this crazy thing, that's highly relevant to a lot of people. So it'll capture a lot of attention. Aesthetics can capture attention too. Like good looking people is one thing that just like captures attention because it stops the scroll. A really cool, colorful image can. A very clear problem. Like if you say, if you're struggling to grow as an audience, it's very clear. Like someone will read that, like, oh, I am struggling with that. So relevance and the degree of resonance is very important. Is like, like if you're a man is relevant to me because I'm a man, but maybe it's not very resonant. Maybe I don't like care to read that content. So yeah, I'm a man and this applies to me, but like, I don't know, I just don't feel enough emotion that I'm going to take a new action. Where if it was like, the president was assassinated tomorrow, what this means for all of North America, I'd probably be like, oh, what the hell? Like, I'd feel extremely emotionally resonant. Like, what is happening? Like, how is North America changing? Different things like that. That is like highly, highly relevant and highly resonant. So that's what I think about when it comes to attention capture. When it comes to like attention retention, that's a very weird thing to say. I think it's more about there always being a question in the reader's mind. So it's about opening up, it's about proposing questions and delaying the answers. And you have to be careful of like which ones you choose. And this is how you basically write YouTube or any long form, same with a newsletter, is it's basically like, okay, so maybe the niching one, I'm just trying to think of a specific example, so this is less abstract. With the niching example, if you're struggling to like choose a niche, read this. Okay, relevant and resonant to some person. But then I need a way of like keeping you engaged to watch or read the whole thing. So then I might say, most people struggle to pick a niche and it's why they feel so overwhelmed, why they want to give up. And the person's like, oh my God, this is me. And I say, but the reason that you can't pick a niche is because there's actually 3 different types. And if you don't understand the difference between level 1, level 2, and level 3, you'll always be confused. So I'm going to break them down for you step by step. I'm going to show you how to start a niche in each one. And I'm going to make this as like simple for you to follow as humanly possible. And then you go, okay, like level 1, the skill-based niche. And then it's like, well, what's a skill-based niche? So then it's like, I just opened up a big overarching question, like, oh, what are these 3 niches? But now it's like, oh, number 1 is about a skill-based niche. And they're like, well, what's a skill-based niche? It's like, it's this, but the problem with skill-based niches is if you're someone with multiple interests, you're not going to enjoy this because you're going to feel too like constricted. And then that's when they're like, oh, well, now there's another question in their mind. Well, what's the second way? Because the skill-based niche doesn't apply to me. So it's about continuously opening up like new questions and delaying the answers and making sure that the questions that you open up in the reader's mind are interesting enough that they want to keep reading to solve them. Because if they're the wrong questions, they won't keep reading. That, in my opinion, is like the most fundamental thing I could think of when it comes to retention.
Dang, that is a sick little like 90-second masterclass on attention. Okay, the last thing that I have for you, Taylin, and that's just to wrap up for today, is in 60 seconds, what is the advice that you would give to an entrepreneur who's hitting a wall or a ceiling, whatever? They're on some sort of barrier stopping them from breaking through to the next level, whether that's like, signing their first client or passing a plateau of revenue or whatever it is. It could be a lot of different scenarios. For that entrepreneur that's stuck at a particular level, trying to get to the next one in 60 seconds, what would you tell them?
You have to be curious about what's not working or what you could change. I'm trying to think of a meta example that would apply to almost everyone. So if you're at a plateau, something that you're doing is wrong. Like the old problem that you were solving has been solved, and now you've encountered a new problem, and you have a deprivation of knowledge, a deprivation of skill, or a deprivation of execution, deprivation of action, you could say. One of those 3 things, right? And or a deprivation of resources. And you got to figure out what are you not doing? What are you deprived of that will overcome this bottleneck. But you're only going to solve it if you get curious. It's, I felt this myself where it's my natural inclination when I come up against a problem to get frustrated. Like, oh, this sucks. Like, oh, I can't solve this. Or like, oh, I've tried everything. It's like, well, clearly I haven't, or this would be solved. That's what I tell
True.
myself. So it's just all comes down to like, you have to ask, like, what am I not doing? What are other people doing that I'm not doing? What am I doing incorrectly that would solve this? What places can I look that will give me the answers I need as quickly as possible with the least amount of effort and resources? How can I test these things in the quickest way possible without wasting time? It all comes down to the questions and the curiosity. If you're fixed about it, like, oh, this sucks, like, oh, I wish I could solve this, like, that's just not useful. You have to get curious about what's not working, and you have to like let your mind search for those solutions, and you have to follow that intuition. Otherwise, you're never going to overcome that plateau. That would be the advice I would give to someone. Is it's always possible to solve it. You just have to try to figure out. You have to ask what, why, how, like multiple times until you crack it.
I think that is a very hopeful note to end on, that no matter what the barrier or the plateau is, that you are capable of finding that solution as long as you have that humility to recognize that there's a problem and the curiosity to explore what the solution can be. I think that's very, very powerful. I really appreciate you coming on today, Taylin, making the time and sharing a ton of the knowledge and experience that you have, that you've learned over this last, 10 years or however long you've been building things. Is there anything that you want to throw in here before we wrap up today?
Well, thanks for having me, man. This was super fun. I love doing these. It helps me clarify my thoughts. There's so many little things that we talked about today that I am working on newsletters or courses or something where I'm like, oh, I didn't think about adding that into maybe like the niche newsletter that I'm working on, or the storytelling or retention one. And I'm going to go back after this and instantly just make notes of all the stuff I want to add to those. So I greatly appreciate that. And this was super fun. If anyone wants to follow along with my journey or learn a little bit more about me and the work that I'm doing, introducing people to a new way of life through ghostwriting and creating more freedom and higher income, I would just say to check me out on YouTube and Substack at Talon Simmonds. Those are the two platforms I like really, really, really care about, and everything else is like, I kind of maintain it and I don't really care, but YouTube and Substack are where I'm putting all my focus moving forward.
Absolutely include those links. And again, I just appreciate you coming on here, Taylin. You're the man. Thank you so much.